All right. Good evening. We are live and we're back. Didn't have a stream last time, but nevertheless, here I am. I took some time to recover a bit and prepare for what's coming with a trip to my second favorite island in the kingdom, Saba, the unspoiled queen. Hence why we didn't have a live stream. Of course, was still monitoring everything that was happening over this side. So, nevertheless, we are back. And of course, starting off with a parliamentary week in review. Last week, we rounded off what was essentially our last week of parliament meetings before we go on recess officially. So we had a central committee meeting to continue the discussion on the state of affairs and potential solutions at the island's electricity company, NVGEBE. That essentially was the prime minister coming back to answer questions and to also present um, updates on the solutions then, and with an actual presentation this time on what was being done by GB to counteract the load shedding that we've all been dealing with. Of course, there is quite a bit of money that's going to be spent as we continue to move into this move through this energy crisis that we're in. We are operating at a 17 megawatt deficit, and that's basically uh, putting a strain on each neighborhood. So we have to load shed. So what's going to happen is that container generators are being. Now I know it was a little confusing. People were like, okay, but then what is the solution that's actually happening? So there's actually a three-pronged approach. There are container generators that are being rented for a period of 3 months, I believe. And those container generators are going to carry us to the point where we can then have the lease to own container generators on the island. Now, the ones that are being rented are going to be rented from a company called So Energy. And the ones that are going to be leased to own are from a company that is called CMEC. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, lease to own and then what? So basically it means that we will have container generators that we then own, well, GB would then own, um, which would then kind of in the future, if we had such a crisis again, allow us to kind of piggyback. Now, the lease to own option also had people a little frustrated because essentially what it meant is that we're leasing to own to bridge the gap until we buy three new um, engines basically for GEBE. And a lot of folks were like, okay, so why not just make a complete switch to solar energy right away, etc.? Why are we going back to these engines and such? Um, and I think those are all very valid questions. Of course, everything costs money, and I think that the reality that we all kind of have to also admit is that GB as a company is not going to be able to sustain the entire island on solar. That being said, it doesn't mean that they can't take steps to upgrade themselves and the grid or whatever else has to be done to be able to actually, see us moving into that renewable energy phase. Of course, persons are able to kind of do their own solutions at home when it comes to solar solutions. But the meeting, I think my biggest concern coming out of that meeting, and I share this with MP Ludmila De Weaver, is that um, it's a lot of money, and GB is saying that they are going to absorb all the costs of everything. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, they're saying there will be no impact to the consumer, and I personally do not believe that. I said it, that it's tough to believe what is coming out of GEBE because from since the time of the hack in 2022, I kind of feel like we as Parliament have been getting uh, half-baked information, whether it was from the then interim manager, Ms. Daniel, or from now. It's just not, as they say in Dutch, klop niet. Like it's not all coming together for me. So it is a bit of a challenge to believe that this is going to have no impact to the consumer, and that's something that I've also kind of voiced in the meeting because I am concerned about that because right now customers are feeling it in several ways. You know, the strain of load shedding. I can tell you right now, if I look tired, it's because yesterday, Defiance Middle Region had four load shedding moments, each for about 2.5 hours to 3 hours each. Um, and then this morning at like 5 a.m. it went again until about 7 a.m. So that I think is also starting to kind of wear and tear on me. So I can almost imagine what it is for those who have young kids at home, those who are maybe not able to deal with the heat, those who are elderly. It's all just very frustrating, and I definitely sympathize, as I have been sympathizing with everyone on how that is. But it's important that we all stay calm and that we all kind of tend to our own mental health during this time, because it is like trauma. Basically, you're going through that repeatedly. But nevertheless, it remains to be seen, and I did ask that question, what is actually going to be the impact to the consumer. So we'll see what comes back from that, and I believe those answers will be provided in writing. So once I get them, because as I said, we are on recess right now. So once I get those answers, I'll cover it in a future live stream so that you all will know what the answers actually were. I'll even read them out if I have to, for everybody. After that, we had another Central Committee meeting, which was the advice for the Committee for Kingdom Affairs and Interparliamentary Relations, CCARE, of which I'm a chairperson, regarding the draft to the dispute regulation based on Article 12A of the Charter for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. That is, of course, what I shared before on the live stream about a draft piece of kingdom legislation from Aruba to handle disputes within the kingdom. Now it will be communicated to Aruba that it's been accepted, and then it will go forward to their government, and then their government will basically move it forward to the kingdom government, and then the legislative process starts at the kingdom level for that dispute regulation, and then we'll see how it goes. This is something that we've been trying to accomplish for about 14 years. So yeah. And then we had a public meeting in which we approved some incoming documents. So how it goes is incoming documents will come into Parliament. So whenever, even if you were to send a letter to Parliament and you addressed it to like the Committee of Petitions, for example, it's booked in and then it is forwarded on to that specific committee. We get a lot of documentation, and it's then referred to, either it's just for you to read or it's referred to a different committee to be handled further. So we agree that the where it's going to be sent to is where it's sent to. And then after that, we had a discussion on the ENYA agreement, which the Minister of Finance, Melissa Gumbs, presented, her findings and her thoughts and opinions on the current solution that's on the table. Of course, worried that we are getting sort of a short end of the stick. But of course, for me, the main thing remains, what is the alternative solution that means that St. Martin comes out better? I gotta say, I was a little concerned to hear that Richard Gibson was one of the persons advising on this. Not necessarily the choice I would have made, but I'm also very big on not involving the people that kind of messed up the scenario in the solution of the scenario. And I found it a little weird that the former Minister of Finance would also say such a sentiment in Parliament, but then at the same time, the committee that was advising on this current solution that the minister presented was also Mr. Trump, who was the former director of the central bank. So that too is strange to me. It's two rats minding the cheese, basically, is what the whole thing kind of looks like. So yeah, so ultimately there was nothing to really say yes or no to. So we will be receiving a follow-up on that. Answers again, I think, coming in 2 weeks, if I can remember correctly. But nevertheless, I'm just hoping that there is a solution that means that we are not kind of beholden to Curacao in a sense, with no good reason. And then coming up this week, which is a recess week. Tomorrow, of course, is Emancipation Day, so I hope to see everyone out at Emilio Wilson. I know that Clara Reyes, our director of the Department of Culture, has a wonderful program put together, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. It was a very dynamic invitation. Red is the dress code, So yeah, I'm curious to see how it's going to all come together. But Clara always manages to pull something off, so I'm sure it's going to be great. And after that, of course, on Tuesday we have Postulation Day, which we'll get into a bit further on. But on Thursday we have some meetings of Parliament, and I believe one is the renewal. Well, it handles the Integrity Chamber law. I was trying to find the convocation here, but yeah, it handles the Integrity Chamber law, and then we also have a committee VRAMI meeting with the Minister of VRAMI related to the TNO report. Now, the TNO report is also why I'm very skeptical about solutions for the GB issue coming from GB, mainly because the TNO report, much like Grid Market, it was a report that was meant to kind of build a roadmap for us to move forward with renewable energy. And as anyone who has read it can see, they also suggested a push towards solar and other possible solutions. But the thing that bothers me, which is also what bothered me about GB, is that GB did not give any information to that TNO report. And um, when we look at Grid Market, that's also what happened. The feedback that we got, even from when I asked the Prime Minister in the last term, was GB consulted? Was GB involved in whatever roadmap Grid Market is building? The answer was basically no. GB said, and GB self put out a statement saying that they are not party to the Grid Market memorandum, which I found really wild because they are the electricity provider for the island. So if you're not giving information to Grid Market and you're not giving information to TNO, then we're continuing this same cycle of protectionism that I think you can kind of track back to why we're here with GB, with Telem, with a lot of the government related entities, to be honest. So um, let me see. And then let me just check this question here in the chat. Corinne, is it true that the Netherlands is researching to change the Kingdom Islands to ultra periphery regions? If you're talking about changing St. Martin to that, because right now, as you know, the Sabre Station and Bonaire are already special municipalities. It's not something that can just happen just so. The research could have been done. It probably has been done. I'm not gonna lie, on their side and on our side, but it doesn't mean that it just happens like that. That's a status that we would have to choose for, um, ultimately. So I don't think it's anything that's a particular concern right now. Let's see. And then yes. So yeah. So hmm, that committee Rami meeting is going to take place Thursday, and then I'm not sure if we're going to continue to have meetings in recess. It is a possibility, of course. Recess is just not a suggestion, but basically everybody can anytime it can be interrupted to handle urgent matters for Parliament. I know that it was requested by one of the MPs to cancel the recess, but you can definitely interrupt recess to have urgent meetings when necessary. And that's pretty much what's on the docket for this upcoming week. In terms of other political updates, again, let me say official on the live stream congratulations to Patrice Gumbs, who swore in as the PFP Minister of Rami, and provided a comprehensive Rami update when he was barely 6 hours in office. Expect that there will be more press releases as well, breaking down those topics further, and you can expect to hear more as well from the minister and the ministry as we have, you know, uh, now we have a minister 100% dedicated to Vrami. Hi, Shay. And then something I wanted to touch on. So there was an article from Telem that was put out. I think it was a live stream, but also a press release in which the CEO of Telem shared that there were network issues happening. And it was funny because on Thursday, and I didn't even send out the press statement about this yet, but on Thursday, I believe I sent questions to the Minister of TEAT, Grisha Heliga Martin, basically asking her to please provide information, whether it's via, probably will be via BTP, Bureau of Telecommunications and Post, which is our regulator, regarding the health of the Telem and Flow telecommunications networks and infrastructure. The reason why I asked that is, as many know, I previously worked at Flow, well, when it was UTS, before being elected, and still keep in touch, and I'm still very, keep try to keep up to date with what's happening in telecoms and such. And anywhere that you have these kind of frequent power outages that we've been having with load shedding, you will start to see strain on the network infrastructure. Now, Flow, I noticed I think the week after the power plant fire, I noticed that the minute the power went out, it would take about 10 minutes for the LTE network to come back up. What that signals to me is that generators at sites are probably overburdened with the load shedding. So they're having a hard time turning on right away to be able to bring the networks back online. I've also been hearing for the last week or two, I think, complaints from 90% of the Telcel and Telnet users that I know, which means that they're also experiencing probably the same issues. And I think, you know, I repeat it often on the stream, often in Parliament. It's about cascading systems, right? It's about one system starts to fail, and then like a waterfall, it just kind of cascades down to different failures that all depend on each other. So those systems are all interlinked. So when people get frustrated because this isn't working the way it should be working, chances are it's because of GB. So I found it strange that the CEO of Telem would then say, well, it's not related to GB. I doubt that. Um, of course, I stand to be corrected by any Telem technician, or technical department worker if there are any left. And also from my colleagues at Flow will also call me out if I'm talking nonsense. But yeah, so definitely something to monitor. But I did ask the minister to determine that, especially as we're going into hurricane season. Uh, you know, the first thing the biggest thing that is at risk is your telecoms network, and then following that, of course, your electricity infrastructure. But because GB has taken some steps to get most districts on the ground and such, hopefully we will see a quick bounce back. Because post Irma, I have to say, you got to give Jackie Jacket, the GB bounce back was quick. Um, the GB, the telecoms bounce back was a little bit longer because, of course, it is a very vulnerable infrastructure. So yeah, so hoping that the minister can get those answers to me soon, and I'm hoping that BTP also is monitoring the situation and the health of our telecoms networks to kind of see what is what's afoot, if any. Before I move on, it's not going to be too long a stream today. Of course, Parliament wound down, so it's just kind of trying to update you guys and keep it going on a couple other things. In terms of local news, I want to just make a quick note. Over the last couple weeks, we have spent a lot of time countering the lies and the fake news from politicians, from bloggers, wannabe journalists, self-proclaimed journalists across the island. I trust that we have been clear and concise. So we're basically going to go back to business. You can have your little live stream with your opinions, of which you are actually not qualified to have an opinion on regarding Supreme Court verdicts, etc. And that can be fine. We will counter when we have to, but we do understand our responsibility as a political party that believes in being clear to inform and to inform without too much bias. And which is why our weekly updates are going to continue. But I do have to say, here at PFP, we're politicians and civil servants. We're not media personalities. We're not entertainers. We don't get paid for this. We don't sell ad space for this. And while we're not going to allow people to take advantage of us, we're also not going to turn into them. Although we actually never could, because we actually do research with qualified individuals who have the right to have opinions about certain things. Can't promise that we won't be spicy here and there, because I'm always one to sprinkle some spice on an interview. But right now, considering that there's multiple crises as that we're going through as a country, there's definitely more important things to focus on. And there's a ministry that needs a complete overhaul, thanks to, once again, unqualified persons having an opinion on how things should be run. So with that, I do want to say to just keep an eye on this space and on future spaces, especially as we move past Postulation Day, and on the information that we're going to be putting out here on the stream and elsewhere as well across our social media pages. Now, with that business out the way, to move on to regional, kingdom, and international news. I wanna I wanna do the good first before we get to the obvious bad, which is to congratulate Team India on their first World Cup cricket World Cup win in 13 years. It was a spectacular catch from Yadav, stopped South Africa basically from taking home the title, which I know probably hurt them. Congratulations again. And the downside, though, which leads me to my next point, is that Team India is unable to travel home due to Hurricane Beryl because T20 finals were, of course, in Barbados. Um, and that brings me to Hurricane Beryl. So Mia Mottley's declared a state of emergency for Barbados, warnings for all the Windward Islands and even southern islands like Tobago. My aunt in Curacao are freaking out because they're also under a bit of a rain and flood warning in Curacao, which is a island that does not rain. What is this? If you've ever been to the ABC Islands, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There was a time you couldn't get a cactus to grow. But basically, it's not looking good for the rest of the Atlantic hurricane season, is basically what I want to say. So I also want to mention a bit because someone brought it to my attention and they were right that Beryl has been used before. I think we've had Beryl as a name in 1988, 2012. I know in 2018 she formed. Um, and now, of course, 2024. So why do we recycle some names and when is a storm name actually retired? So the the modern process of naming storms, of naming tropical storms, is scientific. But the origin of the practice was actually very disorganized and very emotional. So the first recorded storm names were assigned after seriously devastating hurricanes. Hurricane Santa Ana, which struck Puerto Rico on St. Anne's Day in July 1825 and killing hundreds. Hurricane San Felipe, also in Puerto Rico on St. Philip's Day. You see where they were going with that. For the Atlantic hurricanes, of course, there is a list of names for each of the on a 6-year rotational basis. In other words, one list is repeated every 6th year. So the only time that there's a change where a name is just wiped off is if a storm is so deadly or costly that the future use of its name on a different storm would be inappropriate for obvious reasons of sensitivity. Don't nobody ever want to hear that there's a Hurricane Irma whirling around in the Atlantic or moving up, even if it passes Sumat into the Bahamas or the Florida coast. So names like Irma are retired. Names like Andrew from 1982 when it hit Miami and devastated Miami. Lewis, of course. Um, Katrina, definitely not a name you will ever hear again. So to all the Katrinas out there, that was your one opportunity, and now no more. Um, and so that's basically what happens when storm names are retired. I think Beryl in 2018 started, but kind of it was long running, but nothing really happened. But this current Beryl, let's talk about this Beryl. First of all, Hurricane Beryl sounds kind of like an auntie, very angry one. Currently now at a Category 4, which of course does not make anyone else feel good because of the rapidity is rapid the quickness with which she became a Category 4. It's giving Irma is basically what it's giving. Especially in June, that's unheard of. Now, a hurricane in June, late June, early July is not unheard of. One of the ones that I remember most vividly is 1996. We had Hurricane Bertha, which of course was the year after Hurricane Luis, which was our first experience with a devastating, to that magnitude, then a devastating storm. And I remember it because we were on a vacation, family vacation, after all of the stress of recovering from Lewis in Aruba. And my dad had to leave the vacation to go back to Martin to get the house and the dog ready for the passing then of Hurricane Bertha. And the thing is, though, Bertha may have formed around the same time. She may have landed as a Category 1 or so, but the time with which it took her to become a major hurricane, so we're talking Cat 3 and such, was much longer than the time it took Irma. As you remember, Irma was a wave coming off of Africa on a Monday in 2017. And by Wednesday, she was a Category 3 hurricane. I think she even skipped the tropical storm stage entirely. Well, no, obviously not. But she went from tropical storm to zoop hurricane Category 3. Beryl is showing similar patterns. She's also moving much further south, kind of moseying along, dropping lower and lower as we continue to track it. So I do have a deep concern for Barbados, the people of Barbados, because even the outer bands of a Category 4 is nothing to sneeze at. And I think, we all have our experience with that. But I'm also deeply concerned for the lower islands that are directly in her path. So I'm just going to bring up the NE, the National Hurricane Center, because that's the type of, met nerd that I am. So yeah, the 5 p.m. advisory basically termed her as an extremely dangerous Category 4, life-threatening winds and storm surge expected in the Windward Islands beginning early Monday morning. She was at 11.1 north, 56.5 west, 250 miles southeast of Barbados, 350 miles east southeast of St. Vincent. So Nicole, pungent cheese, do take it easy and hold on to your people's day in St. Vincent. I know you guys are prepared. Maximum sustained winds at 130 miles per hour and moving along west northwest at 18 miles per hour, which is good because she's chugging along. And the faster they move, we love to see it. So there's hurricane warnings in effect for Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, Grenada, Tobago, right? A tropical storm warning in effect for Martinique, a tropical storm watch in effect for Dominica, Trinidad, the south coast of the Dominican Republic from Punta Palenque westward to the border with Haiti, the south coast of Haiti from the border with the Dominican Republic to Anse de Hainaut. Um, we all know what the warnings mean, guys. It just means that we have to be prepared. I don't believe that we will feel much of the brush. She is cutting very much that southward uppercut path that some of them look like they're gonna take, and then they just kind of veer north towards us. But I think after the initial hit of St. Lucia, St. Vincent, etc., the bigger concern will also lie with how she enters the Caribbean Sea and then kind of chugs her way up to Jamaica. And I can't remember the last time Jamaica actually had a how you call it, a major storm. I was gonna try to look it up before I came to do the stream today, but I couldn't. So if you are listening and you know it, shout it out, send it to me, and I'll make sure to mention it or post it when I repost the link for this particular podcast episode. So again, definitely thinking on my folks in Barbados, my folks in St. Vincent and in Trinidad and Tobago. You guys definitely make sure that you have your stuff collected. Um, you know, for me, it kind of signals that we also on St. Martin need to continue to be alert. We are not yet in the peak of hurricane season. And I think that is what people are stressing with Beryl. Okay, so I just got, it was Humberto, 2019. Sorry, Jamaica. It was Hurricane Humberto in 2019 is the last time, which, not too long ago, but we don't like to repeat stuff. We don't like to repeat stuff, especially not hurricanes. So definitely keep an eye on this. Any interest in Jamaica and such, you guys keep an eye on the progress of Beryl. But for St. Martin as well, because we're not yet in the peak of hurricane season, I definitely urge you to do that. I've also received word from the Ministry of Rami that they are going to be doing inspection on the trenches, etc., as we move closer to the peak of hurricane season. When you get to that end of August, begin September, around about my birthday, it kind of becomes a disaster. So I'm definitely hoping that I have a quiet birthday this year and that we have a quiet birthday this year. So make sure that you are continuing to collect foodstuffs that are non-perishables. Be sure to look for your utility items, flashlights, radio, extra batteries. I have some great links for solar powered and charged lanterns if you want to order some. You can always message the PFP socials and we can get those links to you. If you know persons that are at their most vulnerable, we are collecting that information as well. There'll be a form that we'll be posting this week. For that, I've been in touch with the community council, of course, in Middle Region. They already have a list of vulnerable people in the district. I'm hoping to work with them to update it so that we can get to people, because that first response right after a storm is the most critical time. So definitely continue to do that. All rechargeable items, a hand crank radio, which, I'm not going to lie, hand crank radios sound so much cooler than they are. They're very annoying. So maybe get one and all you share it and take turns cranking it in your immediate neighborhoods. If you need help, like finding them, like I said, reach out and we're happy to help. Also, preparing for bad weather is not just an indoor activity, guys. Make sure overgrown trees are trimmed, broken branches and fallen trees are taken care of. I had received a flyer from a bucket truck company, and I have misplaced it, but I will find it. But basically, they can come and they can help. They have different versions of the bucket and scissor trucks and such to help you trim your mango trees, any overgrown flamboyant trees, just to make sure that there's nothing errant blowing away when if any inclement weather were to pop up, and make sure that there's not too much debris in your yard. Um, Other than that, again, definitely with the people of Barbados and St. Vincent, etc., and St. Lucia, etc., in my mind and in my thoughts. Postulation Day is July 2nd. The PFP time slot is 9 a.m. We will be walking from the Clemla Bigger Square. You can meet us at 8:30. Get your shot. If you don't have one from last time, because we were just here 6 months ago, guys, come out and join us as we march in the list. We're also giving out the call to action for volunteers. I think it's cool that people get to kind of see what a campaign is like from the inside. So we're always looking for volunteers for Election Day, um, and to help out, to be observers and such among our membership and among those who may be supporters but not necessarily in our membership. So definitely hit us up. Don't forget to subscribe to the PFP channel to be notified of new videos. Follow our social media pages, and we're going to be coming to your neighborhoods this time around. I do have to say that internally we will not be putting up posters in the traditional sense. Of course, it is hurricane season. It would be irresponsible, I think, of any party to put up billboards, plywood, because that is flying debris. And even if there is no hurricane, a tropical storm or even mild tropical depression winds can also take down and fling projectiles through the air. So that's definitely something that we will not be engaging in. And don't forget to join our WhatsApp community for all PFP updates as we continue. And yes, I will see everybody on hopefully on Tuesday, but I first hope to see everybody tomorrow at Emancipation Day at Emily Wilson Park and all the other cool events that are going to be happening. So shout out to Clara. I'm looking forward to it. So have a good one. Have a good rest of the Sunday. Once again, I had some comments. You know, my music, your namesake, Hurricane Andrew. Indeed, mollywopped Miami in 1992. Let's not even get into it. And yes, it is that cold Atlantic current, and it is warmer this time around, guys. I went to Molly Bay Sunday. That water is warm. It's practically hot. So be vigilant, stay vigilant, and be safe. Until next time.